Your soulmate's mother was asked to reject you. Her answer changed the entire future. My beloved child. Your soulmate's mother was asked to reject you, and for several unbearable seconds, everyone in that room believed they already knew what her answer would be. Someone had approached her privately with a warning about you. They chose their words carefully, hoping to make you sound like the one person her child should never build a future with. They expected fear. They expected hesitation. Most of all, they expected her to say, "I'll make sure this ends." But she didn't. She became strangely quiet, lowered her eyes, and asked one question that immediately changed the atmosphere. Why are you so determined to keep these two apart? The person across from her wasn't prepared for that. And what happened next revealed that this conversation had never truly been about whether she approved of you. It was about something much deeper. Because your soulmate's mother had already noticed things nobody realized she was watching. She had seen the way your soulmate changed whenever your name entered a conversation. She had noticed how they could pretend to be perfectly fine around everyone else, then become unusually distant when someone questioned their feelings for you. And there was one moment she could never forget. Not long ago, she had quietly asked her child whether walking away from you would make life easier. Your soulmate tried to answer calmly, but their expression betrayed them before their words could. Their mother saw pain there. Real pain. So when someone finally sat in front of her and demanded that she reject you, she wasn't deciding based on rumors anymore. She was remembering what she had witnessed with her own eyes. Don't skip, because the person pressuring her made one final claim about you. And instead of convincing her, it exposed exactly why they were afraid of your future with her child. That was when your soulmate's mother leaned forward and said something nobody expected. She refused to promise that she would separate you. But she went even further. She told them that if her child truly loved you, she would not become the reason they spent years wondering what their life could have been. The room went silent. The person who had come expecting an ally suddenly realized they had created the opposite. But there was still something your soulmate's mother hadn't revealed. Before that conversation ever happened, your soulmate had already confessed something privately to her about you, something so emotional that it had completely changed the way she viewed your connection. And when she finally repeated a few of those words to the person trying to push you away, their confidence disappeared. What exactly had your soulmate told their mother about you that made her willing to protect a future everyone else was trying to prevent? The confession had happened on an ordinary evening, but there was nothing ordinary about the way your soulmate said it. Their mother had found them sitting alone, unusually quiet, staring at a phone they hadn't touched for several minutes. She asked what was wrong. At first, your soulmate tried to dismiss it. Then their voice softened. "I'm afraid I'm going to lose the person I actually wanted a future with." Their mother immediately understood who they meant. You. But what surprised her wasn't the confession itself. It was what came afterward. Your soulmate admitted they had tried to imagine choosing the easier path, the path everyone else seemed comfortable with, and every version of that future felt empty. Then they asked their mother a question she still remembered word for word. What if the person everyone wants me to walk away from is actually the person I'm supposed to fight for? That question stayed with her. So when someone later demanded that she reject you, she already knew this wasn't a casual attachment they were asking her to destroy. She looked directly at the person across from her and revealed only part of what her child had confessed. "You're asking me to remove someone my child is terrified of losing." Suddenly, the argument against you became weaker. The person tried another approach, claiming your soulmate would eventually forget you and move forward. But the mother noticed something strange. They weren't speaking like someone genuinely concerned about her child's happiness. They were speaking like someone who needed you gone. Why? What would your presence change for them? She asked exactly that, and the answer didn't come. There was only hesitation. A glance away. A nervous attempt to change the subject. That tiny reaction told her more than any explanation could have. Then she did something your soulmate still doesn't fully know about. Instead of agreeing to push you away, their mother began asking questions about the person making the request. How long had they been trying to influence this situation? Why were they suddenly so concerned about who her child loved? And why did every warning seem designed to create fear without offering anything concrete? Stay till the end, because her questions uncovered a detail that shifted the entire balance. The person finally admitted they had already spoken to someone else close to your soulmate about separating the two of you. That meant this wasn't one uncomfortable conversation. There had been pressure coming from more than one direction. But before your soulmate's mother could demand the full truth, she heard something that stunned her. Apparently, your soulmate had already discovered part of what was happening, and they had quietly made a decision about you that nobody in the family had expected. Your soulmate's decision wasn't to run from the pressure. It was to stop allowing other people to decide what their connection with you was allowed to become. They had discovered that certain conversations were happening behind their back, but instead of confronting everyone immediately, they stayed quiet and watched. Who defended you when you weren't there? Who repeated rumors without questioning them? And who seemed strangely relieved whenever your soulmate appeared distant from you? Their mother suddenly realized why her child had been acting differently. They weren't confused about you. They were trying to understand everyone around them. And there was one detail that disturbed her most. Your soulmate had apparently heard that someone was preparing to give them a final reason to walk away from you. But that reason had not arrived yet. Their mother's protective instinct immediately changed direction. Until that moment, she had been listening carefully, trying to understand whether there was anything genuine behind the warnings. Now she began wondering whether she herself was being used as part of a plan. What if the entire purpose of asking her to reject you was to make your soulmate believe their own family stood against the relationship? That realization hit hard. She looked at the person sitting across from her and asked, "Does my child know you came to me?" Silence. That was the answer. Your soulmate's mother finally understood that they wanted her disapproval without your soulmate ever knowing where it had started. But she refused to play that role. Instead, she made an unexpected choice. She decided she would speak directly to her child before anyone else could control the story. What happened during that private mother and child conversation changed everything again. Your soulmate expected another warning about you, so they immediately became guarded. But their mother surprised them with a completely different question. If nobody else had an opinion, what would you choose? Your soulmate didn't answer quickly. Their eyes filled with emotion, and for a moment, they simply looked down. Then they said your name. No explanation. No hesitation afterward. Just you. Their mother finally saw the truth she had been searching for, but she wasn't finished. She told your soulmate someone had specifically asked her to reject you, and the reaction on their face revealed something she never expected. Your soulmate already had a strong suspicion about who was behind it. And when their mother asked how they could possibly know, your soulmate revealed that this same person had approached them days earlier with a secret offer involving their future with you. The secret offer had sounded harmless at first. The person told your soulmate they could make all the tension disappear if they agreed to create some distance from you for a while. No dramatic breakup. No confrontation. Just silence. A little space, they called it. But your soulmate immediately sensed something was wrong, because the person seemed far too interested in controlling what happened during that distance. They even suggested that your soulmate should avoid explaining anything to you. That was the moment suspicion turned into certainty. Why would someone who supposedly cared about both of you want confusion instead of an honest conversation? Your soulmate refused the offer, but kept that refusal private. They wanted to see what the person would do next. Now they had their answer. When they couldn't convince your soulmate directly, they went to the one person whose disapproval they believed could carry more weight, their mother. Their mother was stunned. Suddenly, every strange pause and carefully chosen warning from the earlier conversation made sense. Someone hadn't simply asked for her opinion. They had tried to recruit her. And your soulmate could see the realization spreading across her face. But then something unexpected happened. Instead of becoming angry, their mother became remarkably calm. She asked her child one more question: if I had believed them and told you to walk away, what would you have done? Your soulmate looked at her for several seconds before answering. I would have listened to you. But I wouldn't have stopped loving them. Those words landed differently. Their mother understood that forcing a separation might change what happened on the outside, but it could leave her child carrying regret for years. And she refused to become responsible for that kind of future. Then came the decision nobody had anticipated. Your soulmate's mother told them she would not reject you based on another person's fear, jealousy, or private agenda. If there was something she needed to understand about you, she would judge it through truth, not whispers. But she also revealed something she had deliberately kept from the person pressuring her. During that earlier conversation, they had accidentally mentioned a specific event involving you and your soulmate, an event they should not have known about unless someone had been feeding them private information. Your soulmate froze when their mother repeated the detail. Only a very small number of people knew what had happened that day. And suddenly, the mystery became much more personal, because your soulmate realized the person trying to turn their mother against you might not be working alone. Someone much closer to the family had been quietly helping them. Your soulmate didn't need long to understand how serious that detail was. The private event their mother mentioned had never been shared publicly, and your soulmate remembered exactly who had heard about it. There were only 3 people. One was their mother. Another was someone they had trusted for years. And the third was a family member who had recently begun asking unusual questions about you. Suddenly, small moments that once seemed meaningless started connecting. A question about whether you were still speaking. A casual remark about whether the relationship had become difficult. Even an oddly specific comment about your soulmate needing a fresh start. Had those questions really been innocent? Their mother noticed the change in their expression and asked what they were thinking. Your soulmate hesitated, because saying the name aloud would change the family dynamic completely. Instead of accusing anyone, your soulmate decided to test the situation. They told their mother not to reveal that the two of them had compared stories. Then they shared one deliberately harmless piece of false information. Something believable enough to travel, but specific enough to identify where it came from. Their mother understood immediately. If that detail reached the person who had asked her to reject you, they would know someone close to the family was passing information along. But what happened next came faster than either of them expected. Within days, the same person contacted your soulmate's mother again. This time, their tone was urgent. They claimed they had new information, proving you were wrong for her child. And when they repeated that information, it was almost exactly the false detail your soulmate had planted. That confirmation changed their mother's concern into determination. Someone she knew had betrayed her child's trust, and the campaign against you was no longer something she could dismiss as ordinary family disagreement. But there was another surprise. Your soulmate's mother didn't immediately expose what she knew. She asked the person to explain where the information had come from. They avoided the question twice. On the third attempt, they finally mentioned a relationship inside the family, and your soulmate's mother recognized exactly who they were describing. Yet before she could confront that person, she learned something even more unexpected. The family member passing information had apparently been promised something in return if they helped convince your soulmate to leave you behind. The question was no longer simply who wanted you rejected. It was what they believed they would gain if you disappeared from your soulmate's future. What they hoped to gain was influence. The family member had been told that once you were out of the picture, your soulmate would become easier to guide toward a future everyone else considered more convenient. A different relationship. Different priorities. A life that looked acceptable from the outside, even if your soulmate felt nothing for it inside. But your soulmate's mother immediately saw the flaw in their thinking. They had treated her child's heart like something that could be rearranged by enough pressure. And worse, they had assumed she would help. She asked the family member one simple question: "Did you ever ask what my child actually wanted?" The answer came slowly. No. Nobody involved in this plan had seriously asked. They had been so focused on removing you that they never stopped to understand why your soulmate kept choosing you emotionally, even during periods of silence and uncertainty. That realization affected your soulmate's mother more deeply than anyone expected. She remembered all the times she had watched her child become quiet when conversations about the future began. She had mistaken some of that silence for uncertainty. Now she understood it differently. Your soulmate hadn't been struggling to decide whether they wanted you. They had been struggling with how much resistance choosing you might create. Can you imagine carrying that alone? Loving someone while wondering whether choosing them means disappointing people you have loved your entire life? Their mother finally understood the weight her child had been hiding. So she did something nobody had asked her to do. She apologized. Not because she had rejected you, she hadn't, but because she admitted she should have noticed sooner that her child was being pressured from several directions. And then your soulmate finally told her the one thing they had been afraid to say. I wasn't scared you would hate them. I was scared you would make me choose. Their mother's expression changed instantly. She reached across the table and told her child she would never demand a decision built on fear. But then she added something that surprised even your soulmate, maybe I need to know this person for myself. You. For the first time, their mother wasn't discussing you as a problem someone else had brought to her. She was considering you as the person her child might genuinely build a life with. Something huge was waiting for your soulmate in those words, because their mother had already begun thinking beyond acceptance. She had quietly made a decision about what she would do if the family tried one more time to stand between the two of you, and when your soulmate heard her plan, they couldn't believe how completely her position had changed. Her plan was simple, but it carried more weight than any argument she could have made. She would gather the people who had been quietly influencing your soulmate and make one boundary unmistakably clear: nobody would use her name, her approval, or her place in the family to pressure her child into abandoning you. Your soulmate stared at her, almost unable to process what they were hearing. For so long, they had feared that family loyalty and love for you would eventually collide. Now their own mother was removing that choice. But she wasn't blindly taking sides. She told your soulmate that if there were genuine concerns about you, she wanted facts and honest conversations. What she would no longer tolerate were secret deals, planted stories, and carefully manufactured misunderstandings. Then she asked something that caught your soulmate completely off guard: if you could speak to them right now without anyone interfering, what would you finally say? Your soulmate's answer came from a place they had kept guarded for far too long. They said they would tell you that much of the distance you may have felt was never caused by a lack of love. Some of it was fear. Some was confusion. And some came from trying to protect you from a family struggle they believed you should never have to carry. But their mother challenged that thinking immediately. What if protecting them with silence is actually hurting them more? Your soulmate went quiet. That question struck the exact place they had been avoiding. How many times had they wanted to reach out, only to convince themselves waiting was safer? How many times might you have interpreted their silence as rejection when they were actually fighting battles you couldn't see? For the first time, your soulmate began wondering whether the greatest threat to your future wasn't the people opposing you. Maybe it was everything the two of you had been too afraid to say. That was when their mother revealed one final detail from the conversation that started all of this. The person who asked her to reject you had said something strangely specific. They were afraid that if you and your soulmate spoke honestly again, everything would change. Those exact words stayed with her. Why would one conversation between two people be so threatening unless there was something the interference depended on you never discovering? Your soulmate immediately remembered a message they had almost sent you weeks earlier, a message explaining what had really been happening behind the scenes. They had written it, reread it, and then deleted it because they feared the consequences. But now their mother looked directly at them and said, maybe the truth deserves a chance. Your soulmate reached for their phone, yet before they could decide what to do, another message appeared on the screen. From the very family member who had been secretly passing information, asking to meet immediately because there was something about you they could no longer keep hidden.